Welcome back to the FanScription podcast. I'm Walter. Heather is helping us out here today, and Rob, the writer of this massive piece of art that we'll call Tim Burton's Batman and Robin.
My apologies in advance.
Well, we just posted last month the big 4.5 hour combined version of everything. So that's the full movie, quote unquote. I don't know, what would we even describe this as, Rob? Because I have people asking me about that kind of often, and it's kind of an audio movie, but there's so much work that goes into the visuals of it with our artists and the editing and the pictures that you've made. I mean, you made like thousands of pictures for this. So what do we call it?
It's really in some ways kind of like a radio drama, but with pictures.
Right. So like a motion comic radio drama.
Yeah, sure. Like one of those graphic novels that they do where, you've got the audio attached and everything. It looks kind of, with the filters I put on it, it looks kind of like a graphic novel. So
yeah. So it's basically like sort of a motion graphic comic book audio movie. There you go. Very easy to say.
It's a literal motion picture.
Aha! Boom.
Actually, it's a still motion picture. It's a slideshow. It's like playing Myst.
It is kind of a slideshow with moving elements within this particular slides. But yeah, it's been a long time since we've done an actual FanScription podcast. I mean, we always try to upload the audio versions of all of our actual episodes on our podcast feed, but it's been a while since you and I, Rob, have sat down to talk about this. We don't even have a studio to do it in anymore. So we're doing it on Twitch, which I wanted to do this for a while. I think this
I was wondering why we were getting along so well, and I just realized, we haven't seen each other in a while.
That's what it is. But yeah, I wanted to do it on Twitch for a while just because I think that it's easier for a back and forth because people always ask us questions, and a lot of the time I have to take screenshots or write them down, and then we ask them that way. But having the live interaction here, I think, is a little more direct for everyone. So as we go along here, we'll answer those questions. But there's so much stuff to get into about the background of this and the lore that is behind these videos, Rob, because it's a story within itself, and one that we have to tell on this podcast here. So I think we should go back and start with the Batman Forever fanscription that we did. So that was the Tim Burton Batman Forever fanscription. Went up 2021, I think, or was it 2020?
Yeah. Which in and of itself was a follow-up to my Batman Returns one, which is what if Billy D. Williams was Harvey Dent in that. Mm-hmm. And I think we also have what if the Penguin was Max Schreck's long-lost brother. Right. Which was in an early draft of the Batman Returns script. So, so that's already like the pre-lore, just getting into Batman Forever.
Right. That's all of our continuity. That's we've built up through this Tim Burton quote unquote universe that we've continued. But that video was very popular because so many people were asking about the Batman Forever fanscription for so long. That was like our most requested video for since the beginning we started fanscription. So.
And yet it doesn't do as well as the Frozen one.
The Frozen one, that and what's the one? There's Lion King.
The other crazy one, yeah.
That and the Lion King are the ones that
slap Disney on it. The kids love it.
Right. The one that confuses me the most is Back to the Future 4 because I was like, I just did that one because I wanted to do it, and that one's got 1 point something million views. But the Batman Forever one was really popular. A lot of people really enjoyed it. And we've talked before on this very podcast about all the work that went into just the Batman Forever one. So we knew there was going to be a follow-up to it. We wanted to do a Batman and Robin, Tim Burton-esque, Michael Keaton continuation of our version of Batman Forever. So we were always going to do it. But man, we tripled down on this, didn't we? We really went.
Sure did.
We went way further than we did with Batman and Batman Forever. The whole background of why we only did 3 big fanscriptions in 2022 is there's a lot back there to talk about. So we can talk about a little bit of it because some of it is just we don't want to bore you too much. But there was a lot of stuff happening in 2022 for me personally. A lot of personal events, we'll say, and a lot of health troubles that were going on for me. Some that I knew that were going to be happening. I was going to be having a procedure going into that year. And I knew that I just wasn't going to have time to make a fanscription every month on top of Batmay and on top of Twilight Tober Zone. So I decided, why don't we just do 3 big ones, kind of like we did with Batman Forever. It won't be as much work, and I could, make these kind of like event premieres, sort of. So originally, Batman and Robin was just going to be one of them. It was our most requested one. People wanted us to continue on with what we did with
Batman Forever. Going to be that Forever. And Indiana Jones 4, I think, was one of them.
Indiana Jones. A lot of people wanted me to do Spider-Man 5 as a follow-up to my Spider-Man 4 video that I did a couple years ago. There were a couple options. I put like some Twitter polls up about it, and we had some options that we're going to go into. Batman Robin was always going to be one of them, though. But since that was the most popular option, we were going to do that first. So I had ideas about what I wanted to do with that video from way back. But it turned out that as the year went on and the personal problems that kept coming up kept mounting, I wasn't able to fully write that script like I wanted to. And that's when I approached Rob with the ideas that I had, and he started to become the script writer for that video, or those 3 videos, what became those 3 videos. So the one thing that I really wanted in there from the very beginning was to have Chip come back from he was in our Returns video, because he wasn't anywhere in Batman Forever. I think he was like referenced in a sheet that you put of people who could be Batman when Riddler was trying to find out. But I wanted to bring him back as a main villain, and I just thought it would be such a cool twist to turn him into the villain Blight from Batman Beyond. We could sort of spin it, and it wouldn't be something anyone expected, which they didn't. But we could sort of spin it to where, hey, this came out maybe like 1999, 2000, and we could say in some pseudo weird world where Tim Burton was aware of what was going on with the Batman Beyond show, and he could adapt that villain into what was going on in his version of Batman and Robin. So,
and I gotta say, me being the trooper that I am, my reply was, "Are you out of your damn mind?"
No, you were not on board with that idea.
I was not on board with that at all.
No.
Austin had, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Austin had asked in the chat, what made you want to put Blight in this movie?
So thinking about the Derek Powers character from Batman Beyond and where Chip could be if we brought him back, it just kind of matched up. It was just kind of a light bulb that went off in my head about having those. They're not like the same kind of character, but they have similarities with being like this big mogul in Gotham. And there's a lot more history with Chip's character because of what happened with Max Schreck and Batman Returns and everything, that you could build off of, and also tying that fatherly, daddy issue thing back to some stuff that was happening, what we eventually did in the story with Bruce and with Thomas Wayne, and that's where that whole backstory, kind of came together there. But yeah, it wasn't just that. There was a few other ideas that I wanted to bring Catwoman back. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to do in this, for sure.
I was on board with that as well.
Yeah. And I didn't have time to like come up with an outline or anything. These were just some of the themes and ideas that I wanted to incorporate and make sure that were in the story. So when I turned everything over to Rob, we had like a couple conversations, and I think we had Facebook back and forths about how we could develop some of the ideas. But from there, I mean, this is going to be all you. So do you want to take it from here and talk about like your scripting process, and then we can go into how we split it up?
Sure. So the funny thing is, when you mentioned Chip, there was I guess you would call it a deleted scene in our FanScription for Batman Returns. I wrote it down and then had second thoughts about it. But at the end of the Batman Returns one, I had Bruce, before he spots the cat in the alleyway at the end, pass Chip in the cemetery where Max Schreck is buried. And Chip just kind of stares Bruce down as like the car passes. And I thought, well, that'll be like a potential setup if we want to do something with it. And the more I thought about it, I was just like, I'll do that. Tim Burton didn't do that. Like the movies don't really connect that much. And now I'm almost regretting it because I'm just like, I didn't think we were going to bring Chip back. So yeah, that was there. But so Walter like came up to me and said, do you want to help write it? And I had only one major idea. I had like two. One was I knew exactly what I wanted to do with Freeze. and I had the opening all written out in my head, and I was like, I want to make it like the opening to Batman Returns, where you get this kind of back origin story to Freeze really quick before the opening credits. And I knew kind of more or less where I wanted to go with Freeze, who I wanted to cast. It was always going to be Patrick Stewart, because that was the rumor at the time when Batman and Robin was coming out, particularly after the animated series. I know a lot of people, including myself, were just like, oh man, Patrick Stewart would be perfect, kind of looks like him. And and I knew that I wanted the story to progress in a way where Batman and Robin do fight, and do which the movie itself kind of did, but it did it really horribly by trying to incorporate Poison Ivy, and it was just some petty jealousy thing. And it's like very much Obi-Wan, he's holding me back, kind of like silly arguments.
For sure.
But apart from that, I told Walter, I'm like, I don't have anything really. My magnum opus was like Forever. I was like, everything I wanted to say Batman-wise happened in the Batman Forever one. It was mostly with the Riddler and his interactions with Bruce, and the stuff we did with Two-Face. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm out. So Walter's like, oh, I'll come up with some ideas. So he hands me this Bible that's of like 14 pages worth of like character ideas. It's like, I want this to happen and this to happen. And I remember reading it just going like, like it was so much stuff, a lot of stuff. And I do remember saying, I'm just like, I can do this. Like, this is going to be long. Like, you want a lot of stuff in here. And it started to become like, well, it's okay, because it's going to be like one of like 3 big ones we'll do. So that'll work. And the plan was like, I was going to write it out kind of as a full movie script and let Walter cut it down however he wanted. So I got to writing, and it took like 3 months worth of writing to get the whole thing done.
And this was before you saw the Batman, right? This is before either of us saw the Matt Reeves Batman.
The Batman.
Right.
And then that got tricky because that involved the flooding of Gotham City at the end. And so I'm like, I had to kind of like rewrite that a bit, because it's like, well, I don't want to I wasn't even ripping the movie off. I hadn't seen it yet. But when I saw what they did in that movie, I was like, shit. Because I had this idea for a big set piece. It was going to be this Gotham City dam with these big statues around it, and very, Tim Burton, Bo Welch, Anton Furst design. So then I'm just like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to kind of rewrite that. And we did, and I turned in the script, and Walter said something to the effect of like, oh, this is so good, let's just do the whole thing. And then I had to
kind of. There's more to that. But
we had the health issues, and then that meant that there may be only one FanScription.
Right.
So it got really tricky. And then I think your 2 major issues were you didn't like the ending, the finale, which I openly admit I was just like, I'm not good at finales. I had no plan for what the finale was going to be. I just knew where I wanted to get to, but so it was a mess. So he was like, rewrite that. And at that time, we were still planning to have it come out in what was going to be like a month and a half or something, 2 months. And I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. So I like plowed through to completely rewrite the finale, did that. And I think your other criticism was you didn't want Catwoman early on.
Right.
And
I wanted her to be a smaller presence.
It's funny, like now that I've seen the whole thing together, I actually kind of agree with you. But Catwoman's one of my favorite characters, and I was just like, you gotta have Catwoman. If you're gonna put her in the movie, she's got to do something and show up earlier. But I agree. If I were to rewrite it, there's like things I would take out and shorten. I did shorten a few things. But yeah, we got to that point, and then I think the other big thing was somewhere in the middle of it, because you had in your Bible that you sent me, like, Barbara Gordon's in it, and she may be dating Dick Grayson. And I'm like, okay, well, does she become Batgirl by the end of it? It's like, no, but she helps solve the mystery. And I'm like, well, then we have the world's greatest detective and his boy blunder not solving a single mystery because the two women do it, because you also had in the Bible Catwoman help solve the mystery. So I'm like, do these guys do anything? So I like ran it through my head. I'm just like, I remember coming back to it, I was like, I think I can actually make this work where she becomes Batgirl and it ties the whole plot together. Like it all works. And you're just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I was like, well, just wait and see it. And it seems like you liked it. So,
for sure.
By that point, we're talking like, my guess it was going to be a 3.5-hour movie, like 3 hour, 15 minutes.
You think so small.
But I will say this. I think if you take some of the narration out of it, it's probably a little shorter than what we ended up with.
Oh,
My guess is it's 4 hours.
Yeah, without all the narration explaining what we're seeing, obviously be shorter than that. But I was just saying, like, I thought you meant like just as a video, and it's an hour long.
No, because I remember you came up to me and I said, I was like, I think it's going to be like 3 hour, 50-minute, 3.5-hour movie, and you were just like, really? Like, I don't think so. I'm like, you need to read it, dude. Time it out. Like, I'm like, I know what a film script should look like and the page numbers and stuff, and I'm just like, this is massive. But my two biggest fears was, one, I did Batman Forever, and that said everything I wanted to say. And what I didn't want to do was just repeat everything we did in Batman Forever, which is why I had trouble with having Chip in it and Bruce and dealing with daddy issues, because I was like, that was the theme of our Batman Forever one. So I was just like, I really wanted to make sure that it felt fresh enough, like we had something else to say. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing was just, I wanted to do right by everything you wanted in it. And I'm just like, okay, how do I put all of these like 15 different elements together with 8 different characters, all of which, you know, need a chunk of screen time to justify their existence in this. I think I did an okay job. Like I don't
did.
know.
No, you definitely gave enough room for everything to work. By the end of it, it all definitely worked out. I will say, I didn't send you a 14-page document. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I did send you it was maybe a page or two. Yeah, it was a lot of text. It wasn't 14 pages.
It was not a page or two.
It was not 14 pages. I don't know where that is now. But
I wish I had my. Yeah, it's on my computer.
But it was just a breakdown of story and character ideas that I had. But none of that was going to be like, you have to do this. This was just stuff that, like, ideas that I had that I was turning over to you that I would like to see somehow incorporated. But you didn't have to do everything.
There was a little bit of a misunderstanding. Well, I thought, because I'm just like, well, this was supposed to be your big thing. You said, like,
I know
I'm really
it was.
into this.
Yeah.
So when I got all of these things you wanted in it, I'm like, well, this is going to be like his big giant thing. I really want to make sure that it comes out the way he wants it, and like all these ideas he had. So I really didn't want to change much, even though like the funny thing is, like, the end result I really like. So it's not a knock against you.
No, yeah. By the end, it all worked out. It did.
In the moment, like before, like they were all like, so many of them were decisions I never would have made. I was like, I never would have brought Catwoman back.
We've talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chip, like, why are you bringing Chip back and all this stuff? Is like a lot of the times, like some of those big turns that I take, like in Spider-Man 3 FanScription where I killed off Mary Jane, or like a lot of those things are like story points that I want to see happen because we'd never see them happen in the movie. We'd never see Chip brought back and especially become Blight. We probably would never see Catwoman come back. But because we are making a video like this and it's fan fiction, like, why not try to make it work, you know?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, the funny thing is, like, we have two very separate styles of writing.
Oh, for sure.
In a weird way, it, like, really came together in this one because that's how you think. And I think more like a studio, just like, well, what would a real movie look like? Like, how would you? And I was just like, no one would make these decisions. And in a weird way, so I'm just like, okay, well, pretend you're a writer, and this is what the studio notes hand you.
Yeah, right.
How do you make it like a real movie? I remember playing it. It worked.
You telling everybody that, like, Walter's the studio, okay?
Yeah, no, that's what I felt like. It's like I got all these studio notes. I got to figure out a way to, and like it was the toughest challenge I've ever had writing something. You know, that's supposed to be like taken seriously. Like it's not like some of our previous, work in days gone by where it's just like, well, this is just a goofy internet video. Like, like I was just like, I really wanted to write this. Like, no, this should play like a real movie. So I think it worked.
Yeah,
a lot of those ideas that I like now, like that was all you. So.
Yeah, a lot of those themes and stuff, but not everything. Like you're saying, like the Mr. Freeze stuff, I always wanted in there too. I wanted to see a serious, real take on Mr. Freeze, like from the animated series, because we know the drama that surrounds that character, and giving that to Tim Burton, just thinking of the possibilities. I think he did a pretty good job, man. The whole thing with the church and the wedding with Nora and how that all tied in with Thomas, like I think that all worked out organically.
And I knew very quickly that's how I wanted it to end. I was like, once I'm just like, okay, well, Nora, once I had that whole beginning written, I was just like, I know exactly how I'm going to end this. I know I'm like, and Batman's going to let him go. Like, I was like, but it's going to make sense. Like it'll work. And yeah, that was like one of my favorite scenes to write. I was like, that's what was getting me there. It was like, if I could just get through the rest of the script, I could get to that end.
Yeah. And you did it, man. I mean, I'm really like, I know I've told you a few times, but I am really impressed with how well you put it together. I wish you would like write professionally, because I think you could do it, man. I think you could. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your behind.
Are you implying that what we do here is unprofessional?
Well, I know that I have certain limits with things. Like, I'm not great with dialogue. A lot of the times I just try to skip past that to explain the story in the shorter videos that I do and stuff. But you really know, you have like an ear for those kinds of styles. And especially with this and with Batman Forever, like I know that you could put something together, man. Like, why not like put together a writing pack and submit it somewhere? I think you could pull it off. I'm just saying. But regardless of all that stuff. Regardless of all that.
Stop.
But putting all that aside, I mean, just the fact that we got this done at all is an accomplishment within itself. Because
I had a lot of health issues.
Yeah, we both. 2022 was the year of mystery problems with the both of us.
Right after I finished the script, I don't know if my body just gave out, because I was so freaking out about trying to get that sucker done. But I ended up having a lot of health issues, and then it became like, I don't know how many images I'm going to be able to provide. And then that was stressing me out, because we were still looking at a June release date, and that may have been feeding into some kind of anxiety, which also wasn't making me feel much better. Mm-hmm. And then so like we ended up having to keep kind of putting it on hold. And then I got like stable enough, like healthy enough. I had like a bunch of digestive issues going on that I'm just like, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And then it literally was 6 months straight of just doing multiple images every day.
Yeah.
To get all those images done. And like at first I wasn't going to put that much effort into it, but eventually I'm just like, nah, it's too good. Like I want it to look good. And then I just became really obsessively perfectionist about it, like OCD. And I'm just like, damn it, no, I'll do every single damn scene.
No, you did it, man. I mean, I know that it was not easy, but I think that the episode's obviously better for it. And we wanted to make sure that I don't know if topped is the right word, but we wanted to at least meet the expectation of Batman Forever, and you put a lot of work into making the pictures for that. And this was, I mean, you did every single shot. You did almost all of that. I mean, there's very few gaps in your vision of the story, because you submitted all those pictures to me.
Well, that's what's rough about these things. It's like you have a vision of it. So I was just like, I really want it to look like that vision I have in my head of like a real Tim Burton-y Gotham City and all these things. And, the interiors I had to play around with a bit, but I was just like, I really want it to look that way. And because it's just like, I know what it looks like in my head. And that was like probably one of the more difficult things, was just like obsessing, finding images or not being able to find images. I'm like, God damn it. There were just some like crazy simple things that, like I would look things up and be like, this is going to be impossible to find an image of, and I'd find it instantly. And then there were other things I'm like, well, this would be easy. And
I know.
For fuck's sake, you can't find it. It's just impossible.
Even with your everyday FanScription, if I'm trying to look up, it's easy to find like a lab background or something like that. It never is. Like the simplest things are just not available.
Yeah.
that you could like track down.
Or they're like fan-made images to the point that I like, we felt uncomfortable, like, well, I can't track this down. I don't know exactly who drew it. It's an obvious fan image. We don't want to give somebody, not credit them.
Right.
So I think there were 2 that you spotted that you're like, we can't use these. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Fair enough.
Right.
But yeah, so it was a really difficult process.
It just took a long time. So from my perspective here, to rewind a little bit, after I handed things off to Rob, I mean, the health stuff with me got really crazy. I was never like in life-threatening peril, but I was in bad shape for a while last year. So after I handed off to him, things happen when he puts stuff together. He comes back with the script, and it's very, very long, like we talked about. So when I did the read through, I mean, this took me like 5 hours to get through. Like I was just like an entire evening trying to stay up and just get through it. And I was like, how do I still have like 100 pages left? I don't understand.
I was for sure you were going to cut it down. I was just like, if I'm lucky, maybe a third of that to the final cut.
And that's where the pro in you, I think, comes out, is because that's how it's really done. I mean, a lot of screenwriters you're supposed to write too much. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, and then just hack and slash.
And then, whoever comes after that will take a second pass on it or tell you to cut this or that. So you did, for the most part, the right thing on that stuff. But then I'm thinking about, like, there's no way I could get this down to 90 minutes because it reads at like 4.5, 5 hours. So I came back to you with some notes, and one of them was Catwoman. I wanted to use more sparingly. I wanted to make her more special in this story. And you agreed to like a certain degree, but then you wanted your own things in there with her. You're a fan of the character.
I bounced it off Doug too, and he's just like, as usual, Doug's as useful as possible. He's just like, boy, I could see it either way. On one hand, maybe it would be cool if she just shows up in the middle of the movie, but yeah, that might be really weird if it is. So what do you think? He's like, oh no, just go with your gut. I'm like, God damn it.
Well, thanks, Doug. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't just that. It went to the Batgirl thing. So I definitely wanted Barbara Gordon in the movie, but I didn't want her to become Batgirl in it because I didn't want there to be too much stuff happening. I wanted to focus on the separate lives that were going on with Dick Grayson and Bruce, and them kind of like, he's just getting older. It's part of growing up. And
the weird thing is,
separate ways.
I agreed with you. It's just, I'm like, I can't. I was just like, I've racked my brain. I can't justify her being in this then, like, because I was just like, she's pointless. I was like, I can't have her help solve the mystery because we've got Catwoman helping to solve the mystery. So I don't know.
Right. I mean, I think my original, again, this was never like fully formed. These were just ideas that I had when I was starting to come up with the story. But I think the idea was just trying to show the audience that she was savvy enough to figure out these things, and where one day you could see her working with Batman and Robin and becoming a Batgirl and all that stuff.
Well, the funny thing is, if we both weren't so sick at the time, we probably could have hashed that out ourselves.
Right. But we were not in good shape. Yeah. And going back and forth a couple times on that was a little bit frustrating because I was thinking that you were going to be hacking this down, and then you came back to me with some stuff that was actually longer. I was like, what the fuck is going on? But that's just kind of where we were at that point. I wasn't able to be as involved. If I was like I am now, like involved with every FanScription and stuff, we could have figured something out, I think, eventually. But that just wasn't the case at the time, and we both really wanted this to be really good. And that's where I reached the point where I was just like, if we split this up into 3 parts, this could just be a massive one-story FanScription that could be the 3 videos that I promised. That way I won't have to write the other 2 because I'm just not in the mental capacity, the mental state to be writing at that point anyway. So that's where I kind of decided, all right, it's not working out where we could cut this down right now. Like, it would take another few months. We don't have another few months. The story's good. Why don't we just split it up into 3 parts? And that's when I approached you with that idea. And then we kind of hashed out where the cuts would be. I think I suggested a couple, and you had a couple ideas about where it could stop, and then we figured it out from there.
And that was, for me, that was a huge relief. But then it was like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it was like, oh, thank God, that means we've got more time to do it. And then I thought, oh, God, we're going to be working on this for like 6 months.
Yeah. And then that became the thing. It's like, well, better start digging our heels into Batman and Robin, because this is all we're going to be doing for the next 6 months or longer than that.
I think both of us near the end were starting to crack. I cracked first because I had the images, but then I know near the end you were just like,
oh my God. We'll get to the editing. There's more stuff to get to before we get to the editing phase of this. Now, I was not going to be able to read through everything as the narrator on this one. I know that originally you wanted me to do that. You didn't want to handle the narrator duties on this one.
I don't like narrating myself.
Right. I think you're not bad at it though, man.
So I'm hyper aware of things like the length, because I write long, and I end up just speeding through it. And it doesn't, I was just like, it's got to be somebody who's not as attached.
Sure. And, I was thinking of doing that, but at the same time, I was just thinking about having to go through all of that stuff by myself and just having to, pound through this voiceover. It got to be a little bit overwhelming, and again, wasn't in the best health at that point. And that's where I was like, I was thinking of having Malcolm do a narrator spot on a future FanScription that hopefully will still come out at some point for mine. I was like, why don't we just have him do this? Because everybody loves Malcolm's voice. It's Malcolm.
Well, and it worked out because like Malcolm had a big role in Forever. Mm-hmm. But in this one, I think outside of Lucius Fox, I was like, there really weren't a lot of African-American characters. So I was just like, it was going to be very, very light on Malcolm this time around versus Forever, where he had such a huge role. So it gave him something to do.
Yeah. And I think he pulled it off so well. I mean, he's a real trooper, because we would sit there for hours every couple months to get back to doing the narration of this, and just going through it for a long time. Remember, these are 90-minute plus videos, or a little bit less than that.
He's reading an audiobook, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And these were all done for the most part in like one session with him each time. So he's a real pro. I mean, he's a pro legitimately. I mean, this is what he does for a living a lot of the time. But I mean, to see him power through all that stuff with only like 1 or 2 breaks. I mean, he really got through a lot of stuff. I would have to stop just once in a while to be like, this word is, pronounced this way, or give me that one more time. It really wasn't that much. He did a great job. And I think those 3 episodes are much better because you hear his voice throughout it for the most part. But from there, getting everyone else to do their dialogue and stuff, I always wanted you there when we are recording with the voice actors, because while I came up with some of the story and all that, these were your words. I mean, you wrote them, you know how you want them to sound, the inflections that you're going for. So when you weren't voicing a character, which was a lot, I mean, you voiced Chip and Batman and Bruce Wayne.
I threw my voice out a couple times, yeah.
Yeah, you did a lot. But I always wanted you there to help direct the actors for the most part. I think there's only like 1 or 2 small little bits where I was just directing like Jim or Brad or whoever for some of the smaller parts. But, this was one of the big times where you really got to put your vision out there in terms of like the acting. So for you, what was it like having to direct full scenes basically audio wise? I would like chime in once in a while, but I was trying to like leave those reins to you.
It's rough because I'm not much of a director, and it's hard because we're not doing basically an original property. Like, this is a known IP. A lot of the characters are already kind of set in stone. Michael Keaton sounds like Michael Keaton, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I wanted it to have that Batman Burton sound, the quippy dialogue that you get in Batman '89 and Batman Returns. But I think everyone pretty much nailed it out of the park. I'd say the one that like made me the most nervous because it was the most difficult was Heather as Barbara, because she had like these powerhouse like dramatic scenes. And I was just like, out of all, like, a lot of the ones are more like quippy, and it's like well, obviously she could do quippy, but it's like some of them I'm like, boy, this is gonna sink or swim, based entirely on the performance. Like there's no getting around it, and like she just like hit it out of the park. Like,
yeah,
I thought it was amazing, and like I didn't have to give that much direction either. Most people, I mean, a lot of the direction I just had to give was just like, well, no, say it like this, or I had some scenes in my head that were kind of based on dialogue I'd hear in other movies or stuff, or a certain type of performance, or simply doing an impression, like Giancarlo Esposito. It would be something where it's just like, no, just you need this inflection because that's just kind of how he says things. You know, and a lot of the characters we had, they all have particular inflections. So yeah, no, I thought everybody was great.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
No problem.
You did well too, though, in directing.
Like, well, like I always feel bad because there's like an implication of something like, well, Heather's gonna suck, and it wasn't that. It was
who
just like,
said that?
Nobody.
No.
It sounds like that's what it's being implied when you're just talking, but I just knew how difficult it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that was when I was just like, oh my god, like I hope this works, and like it just was amazing.
Yeah, a lot of the drama was on you, Heather, for some of these scenes. Especially, I think the thing that impressed me, or the scene that impressed me the most, I think, was the tunnel scene where she's just beating the crap out of one of those thugs, and Robin shows up to try and stop her, and you have to play where he kind of reveals that he is Richard Grayson here. This is like the big reveal. So you have to play like this shock. And also he knows he figures out who you are at this point, and you're so angry about what's been going on. You had to balance a lot of emotion.
There was like, I mean,
scene.
so you had the shock that he's alive. You have the relief that he's still alive. You have the love that you have for him, but then all of a sudden the realization that, oh my God, this may be a doomed romance. Like, this can't happen. Right. There's no way we could be together. Like, you know, my father will kill me. Like, you know, this blows up everything. And I think you managed to capture all that.
Thank you. Well, it was partially your writing and directing too, Rob. So take credit. Gosh darn it.
No, that was all me. Fine. Is that what you want me to say?
How, for you, Heather, what was it like stepping into this one? Because this, you know, you had some dramatic stuff in the Batman Forever when you when you played, I think, was it Mrs. Dent?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So you had some dramatic stuff in there, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot more this time around. So what was it like for you to stepping into this one? I know that we were kind of hyping it up a little bit, like there's a lot to go, a lot of stuff going on here.
I mean, it was fun. Like, I know it's dramatic, but it was fun because, like, I am trained in theater and I do have like a voiceover demo and I do voiceover work. So it was like, yeah, y'all can see some of my different set of skills now, you know, that isn't just Nostalgia Critic or streaming, you know. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a good challenge to be able to put that hat back on, you know.
Right. Yeah, and you did a great job, man. Great. Everybody did.
Yeah, truly.
Well, it was fun because like in the case of Tamara, she loves playing Catwoman.
I know. She sounds so much like her.
She just so gets into it that it made it kind of fun because she's like, oh, that's such a Catwoman thing to say. I love it. She would keep saying, I love it. I love it. Let's do it. I love it.
I love when you would read, like, do the line reading for her, because sometimes she would just straight up ask you how to read the line.
Well, so Batman Returns is like my favorite Batman movie. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm just saying it's my favorite. So I know that movie inside out. And when I was writing Catwoman lines, I was just like thinking back to that movie. So I was just like, okay, we'll say it like this.
Right.
You know, and yeah, it's really weird to like basically be telling another woman how Catwoman
she was looking to you for like those inflections and stuff, because I mean, when she would get caught on something, she would just ask you to read it, and then when you would do it, she would just copy exactly and like, yep, that's Catwoman. I mean, like, she has kind of that deeper voice, and just there's a tone to Tamara's voice that just lends itself so well to Catwoman, to the Michelle Pfeiffer version of that character. It's like, I guess I should have known that, because her voice, I guess you could kind of say that's in her range, but when I first heard it, I was like, man, this is really good. Like, you sound just like her. And then what really surprised me even more was how close she sounded like Winona Ryder.
That was I had no clue, because like I like her Catwoman. I think her Catwoman's fine. It's the Winona Ryder one. It's just like with Catwoman, I always feel like, well, I mean, you can tell it's Tamara doing a voice. Like all of us, you can tell we're doing a voice. That Winona Ryder one is, I think, the only one in the entire series we did where I'm just like, I can't tell the difference. If you played that to me, I would be like, that's just Winona Ryder. Like it's not me doing a silly voice or Heather or Ayan or anybody else. It's just Winona Ryder. And it was just creepy as all hell.
I don't know what it was, but yeah, she like hit the inflections, like how she like places her teeth and stuff. I know it's such a weird thing.
And she did it as old Winona Ryder from Edward Scissorhands. Like she made herself sound like that impression of an old person that Winona Ryder was doing in that movie. And I'm just like, there's so many layers to this. I don't know how you're doing this, but it was uncanny.
Yeah, everybody was in awe of hearing that. But yeah, so the voiceover process was a long one. I mean, usually these don't take nearly as long as this because we had full dialogue scenes and everything. So, I mean, these voiceover sessions we really wanted to do in person for the most part because there's just something that gets lost in translation when you're trying to do it over, at least for me, when you're trying to do it over Skype or Zoom or whatever. So I think that the voiceover performances were improved because we were all there in person. So
it made me realize why in a recording booth most voice actors are standing. Because when you're standing, you can dig deep and like emote and overact and do all these things that really helps the voice get out there. Whereas when you're on Skype, you know, we're all just staring at a computer screen, sitting down, and it's a little hard to get us into it. So I think definitely doing it live was the right call.
Yeah, it worked out in the long run for sure. So from there, I mean, we captured all of our voices. We have you working on just working so hard on all of those pictures. Then when it came to the editing phase, we had Anna, our artist, submit a bunch of Robin ones. Like different expressions and stuff that were used. And we brought in another artist for this, Blair Shed, who I cannot give enough credit to.
He's amazing.
She is such a great comic book artist, and he is a comic book artist. I mean, legitimately. So to see all the work that he did for this it was so impressive to see it all happen. And I think he was originally in contact with Doug. How did we get first in touch with him, Rob?
Doug found him somewhere. Somewhere. I was just like, do you know any artists? He's like, there's this guy I met at a convention. And he's really, really good. And like, we got in contact with him and like, he'd be honest if he's just like, I'm super busy on something, but generally speaking, like he just pumps things out. He's like a Pez dispenser. It's just like, we need like 12 pictures. He's like, click, 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 click. They all just come firing out.
Right. And he doesn't sacrifice quality for these either. I mean, he got these to us quick. He was always really nice to deal with and was very collaborative if we wanted something changed or anything like that. So
yeah, like so collaborative that I felt guilty sometimes because it would be like the next morning I'm like, oh, he was trying to get in touch with me via email, but I had already gone to bed.
Right. Yeah. He's just a very easy to work with guy. His work is great. You should check out his YouTube channel. He does a bunch of like quick drawings, time lapses and things like that. But Blair Shed, that's 2 Ds. Make sure you check out all his stuff.
Blair, so I can put it in the chat. BLAIRSHEDD. Okay.
Yeah,
there we go.
Double D. Yeah. Make sure you check out his stuff, guys. And he's going to continue to work with us going forward, hopefully. So,
if he's available, I know Doug wants him for the next FanScription that Doug's helming. So
yeah, that's the next one. It'll be out in August. Finally, we'll get back to some newer videos. We had to take these last couple months off because I'm working on Twilight Tober Zone, and there's just no time to make a new one right now. But yeah, look forward to more of his art soon. His stuff was just great to see finally. Like alongside all of the stuff that you made, Rob, and it flowed really well. But for me, I know that in the Batman Forever video, I started tinkering around a little bit with some animation. Well, animation I'll put in quotes because I'm just moving elements within the picture itself. But it is the most basic form of animation, I guess. And with this, I really wanted to have almost all the pictures have some kind of movement in them. So Rob, you started to send me the full PSD files. So the full Photoshop files you're sending to me that had all the individual elements within them. So I could save as separate elements those things that I wanted to move around. But there are a lot of chases and action sequences, and this was so hard to put together, but I was like determined to not sacrifice the quality of this. So, I mean, I worked on this for so many hours, each one. Every couple months, it was like I'm going back into the editing phase and I'm not going to see anybody for weeks. That's how it was. I mean, I was working, 15-plus-hour days, messaging Rob at 3 a.m, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm still working on these Photoshop pictures."
That was about 6 months for me. It was not seeing anybody.
Right. Yeah, you had a lot.
Damn Photoshop. I was just like, I'm so sick of looking at Photoshop right now.
Right. You had a lot more of a high volume to get through. Mine were just like speeding through a few weeks. Like all of your stuff for me was crunched into a few weeks each time. But I'd like barely slept. I'll tell you this, guys. At the end of the third video that we posted of this, my body was wrecked. Like I wasn't doing anything but editing. So like I would get up from my computer here and just go like, "Hey everyone, what's going on? You all right, Walter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still alive." There's like no physical activity for me. It was just me sitting here. It hasn't come back since, so fingers crossed it stays away. But I had this really bad thing. I don't even know what you want to call it, like muscle spasm thing that came up from the back of my neck down through my trap into my shoulder. Because I was clicking so much. I was just clicking so much. I had some physical problems after this. And then that led directly into Batman, which was by far the most comprehensive Batman I've ever done. So I'm still a little burned out from all that stuff.
He hates Batman now. I mean, that's the result of it.
I hate this guy. But yeah, it was a physical process. I mean, we talk about the mental drain it takes to just sit here for hours and click, 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 click. But you don't get until maybe you're into your 30s a little bit more, or just when you're on such a high volume project, that it takes a physical toll. I mean, it really does. And I know, Rob, you experienced some of that as well.
Yeah, I had I got a little bit of some carpal tunnel in my arms from just the constant holding of the mouse to do all these images.
Yeah, same here. So we suffer for our art, I guess, for you guys.
We do.
I think in the end, it's all worth it because I'm very proud of how this thing turned out. It is something that I don't think we're ever going to do again on this scale.
Nope.
No, I don't think it's just...
If we do, it's all you, pal.
Right. I think we would have to bring in like 3 or 4 more people to help. I mean, with editing or with making some Photoshop images or something like that. And even if we try something this big, it's not going to be for a while. So it was just it was a time in our lives that I could remember that I'm never going to forget, I think, Rob.
Yes. We're not going to say whether it's good or bad either. We're just never going to forget it.
Right. 2022 was an insane year. And I remember, for the third part, we wanted to come out with that in December because there was supposed to be 3 FanScriptions in 2022. But, I mean, we just weren't there. We couldn't reach where we needed to by then. So that's when we pushed it back a month.
COVID, that, right. I would have been able to do it, and it would have come down to the wire. But when I got COVID, in late November, or no, it was early December I got it, I was just like, I can do this, but I'm going to be sacrificing quality. Right. It would have been so close. And that's just for me to just get it barely in on time to then have to crunch before Christmas or over Christmas, really. Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you finish that in time, I would have had to really, not sleep. And I already wasn't sleeping. So, that's what happened. We had to push it back a month, but we still got it out there. And, we got to combine those videos together, like I said, just last month, to see the whole thing work as one big video. And I think we said that it would be kind of like a Snyder cut deal where you could split it into parts if you wanted to, or it would more function as a mini series. But I think it works in the form that it is.
I think the two forms it would be best for is like TV. I think like a mini series or like a Netflix kind of series with each episode like a half hour, an hour. I do think, I was thinking about it earlier today. I'm like, you could, in theory, I think, right when Wayne Manor burns down, cut it there and make it 2 movies and pad out part 3 there and make that its own movie. And you would have like a 2.5 hour movie followed up by an 1.5 to 2 hour film or something. So
yeah, I could see that as well. But it's all out there for you guys to see. The last thing I wanted to quickly mention was Barney's music. Your dad's really came in the clutch here and gave us some.
He was a trooper.
Yeah, he gave us some great original music. Do you want to talk about how that came along?
Yeah, I went up to him and I said, I'm going to do the douchey thing, which is to temp track this. So I want the music to sound like this. And he was fine with that. He did a great job. The opening, I just played him Birth of a Penguin from Batman Returns, and the main credits to Batman Returns. I said, I want this, but obviously this is longer. You'll have to pad it out. He had to do, my favorite is like when the title screen shows, it says Batman and Robin, he had to like draw out this super long chord because it had to cover Malcolm's narration as well. And then the biggest thing that I was worried about, it was like, I need a really good Mr. Freeze theme and a really good Nora's theme. And Mr. Freeze, I played him John Ottman's score from Usual Suspects, the Kaiser Soze music. And I said, this is kind of what I'm thinking of, like something kind of like this. And he wrote a great theme based off that. And then Nora's theme, I want something kind of Russian. That's probably what Danny Elfman would do. Like he seems to go for like Eastern European sounds and music. And he came back with this really haunting, like kind of lullaby, like for whenever Nora's on screen. And I was just like, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And he said he was influenced by, God, I can't even remember the name of the movie, but he said there was a Russian piece in a certain movie. And he said, yeah, so I kind of went with that in my head and then played around with it and created something new. And yeah, like everything he did like was great. And then I also had him do like the like Batman kind of main title that Walter could kind of plug in, for action scenes and stuff. But yeah, no, he did an amazing job. So we're really grateful to him.
For sure. The first thing that you sent me was the Nora theme. And I was just like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah,
was
haunting. That's my favorite thing he did. I'm just like, this is just pitch perfect. Like, this is exactly what I was thinking of. And I collaborated with him where I would be like, yeah, can you play up some organ maybe? Or like, can you remove the brass here and put in a little piano? Like, it's supposed to be softer. And like, he made all these little changes, and like an hour later, it'd be like, all right, come back. We live very close to each other. So it's like a 5-minute drive. And he would just call me up and he's like, yeah, come back. I got it done. And he would play and I'd be like, perfect. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I was so impressed. I mean, I guess I shouldn't have been. I mean, that's what he used to do for a living and all that stuff. But but no, he was just great to work with there. And since then, I think he did a little bit of stuff for the Mario FanScription we did. So, you never know when Barney will lend some more music, I guess, when we need him. But yeah, that Nora theme, I could still hum it right now. Like, it's catchy, but in like the haunting, dark way,
Yeah, and I told him the toughest thing was, and I was just like, I hate to do this to you, Dad, because he would like come up with some original music. And I was like, it's got to sound like Danny Elfman. Like, it's like, that's the whole purpose of this, is what if Tim Burton did? So I'm like, that sounds like you wrote it, and like, it's great, but it doesn't fit this. Like, it's like, it sucks that you just have to basically copy somebody for this, because that's exactly what we're doing. But he was a trooper, and like, once he got the idea, he was like all over it.
For sure. I mean, yeah, that was just kind of like the finishing touch and everything that kind of brought this up even another level. So yeah, I think that about does it for this giant process that brought you guys those 3 videos. Again, it's not something that I think we're going to do again without a bigger crew, but I am very proud of how it turned out, and I know Rob is as well. And yeah, we're still going to do FanScriptions. This isn't like the end of the road or anything like that, but yeah, this is
maybe a little more simpler.
Right. Yeah, we tried to scale down.
We made that, like, we did this as a movie to the degree that, like, the images I did, I was conscious of the background, and if you're doing over-the-shoulder shots, how I needed an opposite background, and like that damn scene, like the charity ball in the middle of the movie, I had like 6 backgrounds, and the scene is so long, and there was so many over-the-shoulder shots. I just had to keep moving that background left and right and getting different angles, because I really wanted it to look like somebody just shot a movie and we're looking at like the still frames of them. It's not just one background that we just randomly slapped there, and it doesn't make any sense, like space-wise. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of little details that you wouldn't think of when you're looking at the big picture, but when you're zoomed in, I mean, that's when it's like, oh, I got to think of a different background and reverse angle and what's in the background, and yeah, it's a lot to keep track of for sure. But we did it, guys. We got through it. The scars are still here, but the video is there for everyone to see. Yeah, I think that's all from us here. I don't know if we got any questions in chat, but
I have been muted for a lot of the time because I've been trying to type in chat and type in a document and whatever while y'all were talking. We've got a couple of bit messages, so I think the way I'd like to do this is we got a couple of bit messages which we'll prioritize because that's some real world money spent here. Then I took some questions and comments from the chat about specifically this episode of FanScription, some other like Batman FanScription-y stuff, and then other like general FanScription questions that we can take a look at.
Sure.
Cool. All right, Alan, thank you for the 50 bits an hour ago. We appreciate that. Thank you. 4-hour FanScription. Man, Walter, you've taken this Zack Snyder thing to a whole new level here, dude.
We outdid Snyder. It's longer than the Snyder cut.
It's a half hour longer than the Snyder cut.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you.
Snyder.
LePew, thank you for the 50 bits. First, Rob's ghost returns from the great beyond. Now Doug can morph into Walter? How old is the dark magic within the Walker bloodline?
I don't know. It grew some hair, so yeah.
Very old.
GRK Pectus, thank you for the 50 bits. One thing I would have changed is that I would have had Grissom from 89 be the one who got hired to take out Freeze in the past. I think you guys did an amazing job.
Yeah, no, it needed to be Thomas Wayne because that's how it all tied together.
Right, yeah. That was one of the big, like, I don't know if it was like, going to be a shock reveal, but I mean, I think that would have been a twist that most audience members wouldn't have seen coming if this was a real movie.
Mm-hmm. Cypher, thank you for the 500 bits. Long live FanScription!
Wow, thank you.
All hail.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That was all the bits, so I'm taking a look at my list over here of some other questions that people had. Jack Hamilton said they told Chip's actor, Andrew Bryanarski. I'm sorry. What? What is it?
I can never pronounce it either.
Right. About this video trilogy, and he likes it. Also, since he was willing to speak to me, you guys could have gotten in contact with him and asked him if you would have liked to have reprised his role, like you did with Dante Bosco for the Hook FanScription. He also told me to say, feel free to message him on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, I would have killed to have him say, buckle up, bitch.
I know. Oh, dude, I should have forgot about that. I cracked up so much at that line.
Like so many takes of that.
When Rob is reading buckle up.
He got very fun to write because it just became an unrestrained it of like how misogynistic and just what a frickin' jackass best can I make this character?
He just got worse and worse and worse as the story went on, and
more unhinged as he gets more power.
Right. By the time we got to Buckle Up, Bitch, even when we were reading it, and then when I was editing it, I was just like, I couldn't stop laughing at how you read Buckle Up.
I love too when he shoves them all like he's walking to Batman. He just shoves everybody out.
Right.
Like, you, I don't know. You, I don't care about.
Yeah. It'd be funny to message him and be like, "Hey, you wanna voice a character you did 30-something years ago on an internet video?" But I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. He is one of my, and it's when we did the images, I was horrified, just shocked that I'm like, I don't have a lot of images for him. I forgot how little he's in that movie, but he makes such an impression that I just like it's the Mandela effect in my head canon. I'm just like he's in Batman Returns way more than he actually is. Because he steals every scene, and he's doing the Christopher Walken impression.
I know
Christopher Walken's face.
That's another thing we didn't get to talk about is that you had to do like the actual Christopher Walken impression when we did Batman Returns, but then for Chip, you had to do another person's impersonation of a Christopher Walken impression.
Dad, run, save yourself.
Right? There's a lot of layers there that you wouldn't think about, but we did get Rufio. We got the real Rufio, Dante Bosco, to voice that character. So if that didn't happen, I would say that's a ridiculous question. But hey, maybe we could have gotten hold of Andrew Bernarski. Or I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name either. But that would have been cool to get him back to do this. I don't know. It's kind of a surreal thing to think about if we actually had the real Chip.
Robin the Snob, thank you so much for the 1,500 bits. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Dear Rob, I'm such a huge fan of Brad Ruins Rob's Day, and you're my favorite midnight screenings guest. I work as a merchandiser, so I always listen to an episode on commute. I've listened so much that I can quote them, and it's like white noise. I've had a hard time finding laughs and fun these last years, but you've helped give me some of my biggest these last few. Thank you.
That's actually my garage band name is White Noise.
Nice.
No, thank you. Yeah, Brad doesn't really do those anymore. If he's game, I wouldn't mind showing up again. So, but he's got his own thing now, and he's gonna be having a kid soon. So I don't know how much spare time he's gonna have.
Ellen, thank you for the 100 bits. I always say something is great when I'm surprised. I was surprised when y'all made Chip Blight. I thought he was just going to be a kind of Roland Daggett type character.
Yeah, that's why I thought it would work, is because no one would see it coming. And it would make enough sense where, you make him some kind of supervillain, and the Blight character just lends himself to Chip because of what Derek Powers was and just kind of matched up just enough.
And that shows you the difference and why it worked out, because I probably just would have made him a Roland Daggett type.
Right.
That was all too. You, and it could have worked, but I mean, it would be expected.
But I like the thing that you put in the script about, which was not my idea, was to put this inferiority complex that Chip has with Batman, and that kind of driving him to take that serum and become Blight so he could beat the crap out of Batman without.
Well, I really wanted that scene. I put that scene in there where Batman grabs him out of the pool and is holding him over, because I wanted Chip thoroughly humiliated and emasculated in that scene, and it's you got Batman with all this armor and Chip just practically naked there, just being dangled over this cliff, and I wanted that because I wanted to set up this sort of just it's not just that he hates Batman, it's that Batman bests him. It's right. And the fact that Batman's also Bruce, and Bruce also bests him. Right. So the two are totally connected that way.
Right. And Chip is a big dude, so he's never probably had to deal with anyone like that. He's always been on the winning end of a fight physically or anything. So
well, when I found out, I didn't realize at the time when that movie came out that Andrew Bernarski is a wrestler, and now when I watch Batman Returns, I can't unsee it. I'm just my God, this guy's huge. The suit kind of hides it a bit, but it's when you see him standing next to other people, I'm oh my God, this guy's a brick house.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'd be a great foe for Batman.
Sure. I think he was a pro wrestler or something too in real life. So
yeah, no, he was.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a big guy. So just that's another layer for the Chip character. That's why I think we really built something out of that. that wasn't there in the original Burton movies. I'm real proud of that.
Austin wants to know, was the Lawrence Fishburne character inspired by Harvey Bullock from the animated series?
Vaguely. Because Batman always needs a kind of foil in the police department because Gordon is so on board. But it was just more inspired by the fact that Gordon's getting old. We knew we were putting Barbara in this. I needed like Gordon to retire or to be ill or something to ratchet up like the drama with Barbara Gordon. And I was just like, I thought a way to keep the tension going would be like have this second in command who's going to take over. And he's just like, I am not on board with this Batman thing. But by the end of it, like, he's kind of like, yeah, all right, we'll see. Like, Batman did a lot of good. I didn't want him to be like a corrupt cop. And I didn't want him to be like so completely pig-headed like Bullock. I wanted him like he can see the need in Batman, but it's definitely got to be like Batman needs to prove himself. Or he needs to see just how inept Gotham's PD really is, which is why I like the ballroom scene in the middle, because like that's his big chance to show like, yeah, we can do this, and instead like the cops are just completely overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah, it was a good sort of third party to have in there. And I think was the Commissioner Gordon retiring, was that, I think that was in some of the original notes as well, because he would have been in his mid-70s or something, I think.
Yeah,
by then.
I think you had that in there.
Right. It was just, yeah, that felt like a natural thing to do with how old Pat Hingle would have been at that point.
Well, that's why we made, like, we got so many complaints in the comments, like, Barbara is not his granddaughter.
Look, man.
It's like, look, it's the Burton universe. Like, it's going to be really weird.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise, because he's so old that if that was his daughter, I'm just like, wow, guess, you know, the commish got it on.
I don't think he would have had a kid in his mid-50s. I mean, that's how that would have had to have worked out. Yeah. So having him be the grandfather, and that also creates a little bit more of a layered relationship, because what's going on with Jim Gordon's son, what happened to him or his daughter, I don't think we ever established that really. But there's an extra generation missing there. So that kind of informed some of the angst that Barbara had as well. So it's just another layer.
We went with Kerry Russell, and like that age difference would have been ridiculous if that was supposed to be his daughter.
She was like 20, 21, whatever. So no, this it had to be the grandson, or granddaughter, I mean.
You addressed this at the beginning of the stream, but I don't think everyone was here to hear it. Why did you choose Blight? Asks Goku.
That was basically just because I wanted to bring Chip back. Blight is a character that I think was such a unique part of Batman Beyond and tied directly into the Terry McGinnis character, that you could spin the Derek Powers, businessman archetype and sort of paste that onto Chip. And you would have an even more layered relationship because of what happened with Max Schreck and Batman Returns. And there's just so much built-in animosity that Chip would have with Bruce. And then when you add a formidable physical problem that would come up for Batman from Chip, I think Blight was just the right fit that no one would have thought of. And that's the other thing, is that no one would have thought of that. No one would expect it to happen. So
the biggest issue was trying to connect that to Freeze, because originally when you said you wanted Blight, I was just like, well, it's got to connect somehow.
Hot and cold.
And then so we came up with this idea that like the serum or whatever makes Freeze super powerful, and that's why Thomas Wayne didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be Oppenheimer and like create super soldiers now, nuclear powered people. So the way that all connected together, like that was like the big thing that I had to solve in my head. I was like, okay, if we're really gonna do Blight, like how do we do this, and how does it connect somehow to Freeze? I just didn't want two totally separate things, and I think it worked out.
Yeah.
Sorry, got distracted for a second. Ryan asks, hi, Rob and Walter. I have a quick question. Have you thought of doing What If Tim Burton directed a Batman Beyond movie had WB didn't cancel it?
Yeah, I mean, originally that's what I was thinking of where we would go next, but
we could use Flash footage now.
Yeah, exactly. We could do that. But the thing is,
we wouldn't have Blight though. That was my only thing. Is I just was thinking ahead, just like, boy, if we ever want to do Batman Beyond, that we've already just
we would right. We don't have Blight,
but we can bring Inca back as
right.
Ink, which a couple people like finally put it together, like, oh, it's Ink. It was
right.
Yes,
that's the other Batman Beyond Easter egg. There is that the Ink character is supposed to be Inca in there. Yeah, that's kind of her origin.
Dropped in that toxic goo, that black goo, and my idea is that that's how she comes out as Ink with all those abilities.
Right. So that would be one villain we could bring back. I mean, you could always, fandangle some way if you want to at least allude to Blight or something, but it would be a very different version of Batman Beyond if we went on with it. But there's also that Batman Unchained / Batman Triumphant script that's out there. Or the story idea about Batman hallucinating with the Scarecrow and Joker being brought back that way and all that stuff. So I mean I would really love to do that. I don't know when it would happen though, because that would be another one where I don't think we could compromise on quality, and as we've said here, we're pretty burned out on these.
Yeah.
Elite Gamer asks for Rob and Walter, when you write these fanscriptions for Batman, what's one villain that you wanted to use but ended up being more difficult than originally thought?
So Riddler was really easy for me. Freeze was pretty easy. Probably Blight, just because I didn't have an idea when it started. And then Two-Face, that was Walter's bit in Batman Forever. So I'd probably say Blight.
Yeah, for me, I mean I've done a few Batman ones before that too. I don't know if there's anyone. I could always figure it out most of the time, but I'm not sure if there's anyone that's like, this is way harder than I originally expected.
If we did Batman Unchained or like. Scarecrow would be one that I think might be difficult for me just because there's so much of it done already with Batman Begins and then the animated series. It would be like, okay, what would be our unique twist on this?
Right. You would have to make it really gothic and, try and bring that Burton-esque style to it. But I think that could be done with that character. It would just, it would be a little bit of a reinterpretation.
This is kind of relevant here. Jack Hamilton says, if you go forward with the Batman Triumphant / Unchained adaptation, can I suggest instead of making Harley Quinn Joker's daughter like originally planned, you could make a Joker fangirl, or you could replace her with Poison Ivy due to not using Ivy here and Joker is already dead in this universe, making Harley's origins tricky without him.
I would do if it were me, I would do the fangirl thing and I would have her working at Arkham. And I would probably have her hooking up with Scarecrow. Like maybe they're both at Arkham or something, but like that in my head, because I was starting to think ahead, I was like, boy, if I were going to do that, how would I do that? And I would be like, that would probably be it. She's working at Arkham, and he might be working at Arkham too, because he's a psychiatrist. And then they both like turn sinister or something. But yeah, I don't like the idea of Joker's daughter. That's not something I would do.
They brought a Joker's daughter character into the comics too. I can't remember the name of the character right now, but it's another like clown pun or something.
Punchline, you mean?
Punchline, yes. It was supposed to be his daughter, but then it wasn't or something.
I don't see Jack, in the Burton verse, I just don't see Jack Napier having kids. Like, or even if you did, like, how would you even like make a connection? Like,
I think that character absolutely could have had kids that he didn't know about.
Or... he didn't know about, but I was like, so then somebody then's just like, oh, I found out my daddy was the Joker, and now I want to become like the Joker. It just doesn't make much sense to me, but maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would go with the daughter thing either, but you would have to tie Harley into it somehow because that was a big part of the original story that they were going to do.
Dom Klein says, you've done a Burton take on her, you've done a Nolan take on her. Now we need the trifecta. What if Harley Quinn was in Batman 66?
That's all you, Rob.
Oh, God.
You go ahead and take that.
I couldn't. Like, Batman 66 is too much its own thing, and and it's perfect as is. No notes. Doesn't need Harley Quinn. It's fine.
David from Kentucky asks, who was your choice for a live-action Terry if you include Batman Beyond?
I've thought about that so much, and I can never land on a name that I like that much. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just for God, when we were doing this one, like just trying to land on a Batgirl was driving us nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And we settled on Kerry Russell,
right?
Because she had the kind of look and the right age.
Yeah, for Terry, I don't know. I mean, I have racked my brain about that. It, of course, would be like what time period? Like,
yeah, that's part of the problem.
But I don't know. Terry is such a he's not like a unique character as in like the archetype of him. I mean, he's not like he's another Robin kind of in some ways, but he's more than that. But I just can never pin down who could play this guy. I don't know.
Mumra, thank you for the 50 bits. Did you all hear about Kevin Smith giving his review of his own special screening of the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever recently? Would you all be interested in seeing that version? Heard it has darker moments. Would love to see a physical copy get released on Blu-ray soon. Also, I loved your fanscription of the film.
Oh, thanks. I did hear about that. Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of, like, if you know the deleted scenes and stuff, you've kind of seen it. Because I know what got cut out. It would be interesting. I think Batman Forever doesn't always get a fair shake. I always like the fact that it was attempting to still have darker moments and be a Batman movie. And even with all the stuff they cut out, that's still kind of there. But I still think there would be a weird disconnect. And the biggest thing is, even with the darker moments, it doesn't save the fact that Tommy Lee Jones is freaking ridiculous.
Right.
Like, I like Jim Carrey's The Riddler better. Like, he's less goofy.
I guess so.
Think about that. Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Edward asks, of all the interesting Batman, Tim Burton Batman facts you found out, what are your top 3? Also, do you think Tim Burton would be impressed with your fanscription?
I think he would hate our fanscription because
I think he would too.
His name is on it and be like, I would never do that. I would never do that.
So that's the funny thing.
Sure.
Like, I make no bones about it. Like, there's no way he would do a movie like this.
No.
There's no way. For one thing, there's like too much character introspection, which is something that, wasn't as much in the first 2 movies. I think Returns has a little more, but no, I think it's absolutely what he would have done. To me, it's more like this is the Burton universe, but it's our take.
Right, exactly.
So it's really almost like you've handed it to different directors, but they're saying keep the same universe.
It's basically what the comic did, what Batman '89 did with Sam Hamm continuing. Yeah. That's basically our version of that.
Which, when you look at that one, that is also not what Burton would have done. And I think there's a reason Burton probably ditched his script for his original script for Batman 2. Because that's, if you want one of the facts, like, what's the most surprising, like, the original script for Batman 2 is pretty out there. It involves, like, the founders of Gotham and buried treasure underneath Wayne Manor, and like the Penguin, like, trying to break in to find it. Like, it's pretty odd. And when it's all said and done, for all the problems Batman Returns has, I'm just like, I like this direction better.
Yeah, with sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, with facts, I mean, a lot of those facts are out there. I don't know what, like, another big surprising one would be, really. So
yeah.
LePew, thank you for the 200 bits. Crazy idea. The members of Channel Awesome are a different Bat person from across each of the Bat films, and shortly getting into a heated talks of what went wrong in their films.
All right.
We'll pass that one on to Doug.
Yeah.
David from Kentucky says, if you do Batman Triumphant, will you bring back Jack Nicholson as Scarecrow Toxic Gas?
Like the hallucinated version of him. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Rob had a really good idea. Like, we were just kind of like talking about things a few months ago. And he had like this great concept idea. And I was like, oh, I won't say what it is, but.
Oh, okay. Then we won't say what it is.
I mean, you could talk about it a little bit if you want.
It was more or less based on 2 separate sources. One would be that Mad Hatter episode where Bruce seems to be having a normal life all of a sudden, but something's wrong. And whenever he's like trying to read, all the letters are messed up. And you find out that this is all kind of like a weird dream world. And like,
For Chance to Dream, the best episode of the series.
Yes. So I was like, if we were to do the Scarecrow, I'm like, boy, I would do that. And there was another great episode of all things Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I want to say it's called The Menagerie. Maybe it's there's one where like Riker basically is being mentally tortured, and like he keeps breaking down the levels of reality. He like fires a phaser and the whole reality blows up, and there's another reality, and everybody's trying to tell him he's nuts. And between those two things, I was just like, yeah, that's probably how I would do it. Where it's just like, is Bruce Wayne going nuts? Did he finally crack? Is this real? And I would keep it all the way to the end, and even like maybe even like make you wonder even at the very end. It's just like, is it all real? Like even right before the end credits roll. So like I would like go out on a total mind fuck. Oh, okay. Somebody said Frame of Mind. That's the one. I forget which one the Menagerie was. Frame of Mind is the episode I was thinking of from Next Generation. It's a great episode.
Also, that was my computer, not yours. I'm sorry. It made a little Windows noise. Alan, thank you for the 100 bits. So in your Forever and Batman and Robin versions, do y'all maintain the dark themes from Batman 89 or the more gothic themes from Batman Returns?
I think we kind of continue the Return stuff a little more.
It was there's a lot of Return stuff, but it's more... I kind of went with both because I like the city story side of Batman 89.
Mm-hmm.
And I like some of the Bruce stuff in that, and the quippy way he talks, and Alexander Knox, and but like there's a lot of stuff in Returns I really, really like too, particularly Catwoman, and so I tried to grab just elements I liked from both of them.
Here's a couple of general FanScription questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Ace Ultra Boss asked, what was your favorite line or scene from one of the FanScription videos, like ever?
Buckle up, bitch.
I was to say that was pretty good. Like most of his lines. I really like. So I only really like this because in my head I know exactly how it's supposed to look. But it's when Dick Grayson reveals that he's dating Barbara Gordon. That whole scene. Just is like, oh, great. Yeah, no, it's like, hey, can I borrow you for a second? And like drags her, waves, like, hey, are you out of your mind? Like, yeah. I just in my head, I knew exactly how that was going to play.
That was good stuff. I guess like the whole Hook FanScription for me was just such a thrill to get Dante to voice Rufio. So, I mean, like, I'll say that was just that whole dealing with him at all was like a great moment for me. Also, I think the end of my Back to the Future 4 FanScription, when Doc and Marty have a conversation about like they're the alternate version of Doc. It's very complicated, you see. I got to think fourth dimensionally here. But yeah, that whole ending conversation, I really like how that turned out too. That's another moment that I really liked.
Ace Ultra Boss asks, would FanScription dive into other franchises like Transformers or Friday the 13th?
I'm not a big Friday the 13th guy. If someone else came to me with an idea for it on the crew, then yeah, we could do it.
I was more of a Nightmare on Elm Street guy. And Transformers, I'm not at least when it comes to the movies, I'm not a big Transformers guy.
Maybe some kind of Beast Wars idea, but I would have to think of what the what if would be.
JCM film student asks, will we get a sequel to your Lion King FanScription?
I had ideas for that a long time ago, but it kept getting voted down in Twitter polls, so not enough people wanted to see it. Maybe eventually. I do have, not a story outline, but I do kind of know where I would want to bring those characters from where I left them off in the first one. Maybe one day, we'll see.
Goku asks, when will you do Spider-Man 6? I want to see the Clone Saga finished.
That will hopefully be whenever they come out with the next Spider-Verse movie. It's supposed to be in March, but we're pretty sure it's going to be pushed back. So whenever that next Spider-Verse movie comes out is when you'll see Spider-Man 6.
Sigamigs asks, what possible FanScription can you think of that would require a production of the same scale as the Batman and Robin one?
Can you repeat that?
So, like, what possible FanScription can you think of that might require the same level of production that this Batman and Robin one had? Like, the same huge scale production?
It would be, the next Batman Unchained, if we ever did that. But
I I had like a couple of ideas for like, I had one for a Ghostbusters 3, but I don't want to do it because I feel like I really would have wanted to just like write the whole thing and get all quippy and maybe an Indiana Jones one.
I was going to say that too, but I can't do a big long one right now with Indiana Jones. We were originally going to come out with one that was going to be shorter, but we just couldn't get the story where we all wanted it and everything. So maybe we'll come back to that at some point. Originally, I wanted to do like a couple live action sequences with the Indiana Jones FanScription back a couple years ago when we were originally talking about it. That would be like kind of an extension of what we do with FanScription, but who knows if we'll ever be able to do something like that. The Superman idea that I have would be somewhat on a scale. It would be somewhat on the scale of this kind of thing that we did for Batman and Robin, but it would be from a different angle. It wouldn't be as long, but it would be a lot more work to try and make that something really special, because it's an original story by me. It's not like a what if on something else, riffing off another movie. I don't know if we're ever going to do that, but I would love to. It's just I don't want to compromise on that idea. So maybe one day.
Along the same veins, the Destructive Gamer did ask, do you have any plans to fix the Superman films?
People have been asking me about Superman 3 for such a long time, about what if Brainiac was in Superman 3. But they made that comic, Superman 78, that basically did that and did it really well. I mean, not every single thing in that story works, but I mean, it totally could have been a really good third Superman movie. And I don't think that there's any point to try and improve from what they did in that. I'm not a huge fan of the Batman 89 book. So the
really, really weird thing, and I'm not saying like, oh, we're God's gift to writing, like, but I was just like, yeah, I kind of thought like our version of like Batman 3, what it would look like at least it interested me more than what Batman 89 did. So yeah, I thought that was his take on Catwoman is definitely different than.
Yeah, it doesn't feel at all like the same character from Returns, but and not that I love the art in that book. Joe Quinones, I think.
No, it's a gorgeous looking book.
Yeah, for sure.
The writing, like it's definitely more Sam Hamm, and it's definitely more kind of Batman 1 and kind of just like brings in some elements from Batman Returns, but he kind of like remolds it into his vision, and it just doesn't gel for me.
Right. There's some stuff that I like in there story-wise, but overall, I don't want to say like, oh, I'm spoiled by how well we did. It's not really that. It's just like I wasn't as invested as I thought I was going to be in that story.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to put it.
Right. But for Superman, I would like to do a Superman FanScription at some point with Christopher Reeve, but I mean, I've had my idea for so long that I want to do that first, and it's kind of like been holding me back from doing the Christopher Reeve ones. I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll get to doing that, but it will be a shorter one. It'll be like a half-hour episode.
Will Zona has some ideas about future FanScriptions they'd like to share. Here they are. What if The Rocketeer 2 and 3 happened, because they were supposed to be a trilogy originally? What if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 in the 90s happened? What if RDJ Sherlock Holmes 3 happened? And what if League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 2 happened?
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 2.
The Rocketeer one interests me the most.
Yeah, that would be fun. I love Rocketeer.
Like the ones preceding it were so awful. I'm not sure I would want to see a sequel.
Rocketeer is such a fun movie, man. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. Same director as Captain America: First Avenger, Joe Johnston. I think he directed Jumanji, the original Jumanji with Robin Williams. So he has a very big fondness for like the 40s and that kind of World War II era that comes out in the Rocketeer very well. What was the other one there? The second one you mentioned?
Oh, no, I just deleted it. Turtles.
Oh, yeah, Turtles 4? Hey, man, that might be fun in the 90s. I don't know what the story would be. Maybe we should have tapped the last Ronin. Oh,
there you go.
Krang? Yeah. Shredder! Oh, no.
Soda's Otaku asks, what is the general writing process for FanScription? I have a lot of respect for people who can write scripts.
Find the largest liter of Jack Daniels you can.
Down it all at once. No, it depends on who's writing it, whose idea it is and all that stuff. It's been mostly Rob and my show since we started. So, once in a while we'll bring Doug in to write an episode, but those early ones, I think, we kind of collaborated on a little bit, and then we would switch off who's writing. Then eventually we just kind of did our own episodes. For the process, I mean, it starts with a what if idea for me. It's like you got to think about what's going to attract people to want to watch the video. So you need a good what if question, and you need a good thumbnail to try and draw people in. So that's kind of the first things that I think of. Unless it's something like Back to the Future 4, where I was just like, I've always wanted to do this. I'm going to do it. I don't care who watches it. And funnily enough, that's one of our highest viewed episodes. So that's kind of where it starts for me. And then, excuse me, I take some like Post-it notes and I write down all of the things that I want to happen. Then I start breaking it down and I post them on like a board or the back of a door or something, and I rearrange things and then write new notes, and that becomes the story structure. And then from there, I start actually writing the script.
For me, it's more like what, even in a movie I like, bugged me, where I'm just like, oh yeah, it didn't make any sense. It's like, boy, I wish it went this direction instead. So like the Return of the Jedi one we did, it always bothered me the way it's just like, Leia, you're the only hope for the rebellion, and I'm just like, and they do nothing. I'm like, well, what would happen if Luke died, and then like it's set up that she's the only one who's going to lead the rebellion from then on, and so I kind of go from there. In the case of like, the Batman Forever one, that was Walter had a script, but he didn't really have anything. He's like, yeah, I kind of want the Riddler, but I don't have anything.
Yeah, it was the point. I liked where it went, but it was just too short. It wasn't like the big video we wanted to make. I liked the Two-Face stuff that we had, and then you wanted to do Riddler, and I was like, all right, well, let's just add to it.
So I was able to like insert my stuff into that one and then try to connect it to Two-Face, and then like the Batman and Robin. It's like how I write a lot of fanscriptions. I start working it out in my head first, like, and I'll spend days just thinking about it, ruminating on it, coming up with scenes.
Do you run from the idea sometimes? Because sometimes I'll be like, I got a great idea, and then like I just can't sit down and do it yet. Like you're saying, you have to ruminate on it. Sometimes I can't. Start.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's like an ADHD thing. It's the procrastination of like, if I don't have a deadline or something, I'm like,
exactly.
So I'll ruminate on it for too long, but like I'll ruminate on specific scenes. I'm like, oh, I have this, and then I'll start thinking in my head like, oh, well, then this scene should follow it. That makes the most sense. And eventually, what happens is I scribble down notes in my phone. Like I've got a bunch like right here, where it's just like dialogue, and then like for Batman and Robin, I've got dialogue scenes I was scribbling down sometimes while I'm walking or doing other errands or something, and then I'll put like notes like this scene, then the next scene, and they're just kind of like plot points, and it jogs my memory about what that scene was about, and then I start putting it all together and just basically writing in order. Occasionally if I have a scene, I'm like, oh, this is too good, I got to get it down now. I'll like skip a page and then write that scene down and like put a note where it's supposed to go when it's all said and done, and then connect later.
Right. Don't you hate it when you have like a great idea when you're writing something else? Like, I mean, even in the same story.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of times it'll leave my head and I'm like, shit, what was I like, just had this great idea and I forgot it. It's like you're saying you have to skip ahead to write. I'll just try and write like a note before I forget and then go back.
No, I'll skip ahead and write, or I'll scribble it down like really quickly. Like if I have some lines of dialogue, like I write dialogue first and then the action. And the action is the stuff I hate writing the most. Can't stand doing it. Like,
yeah, it's like the opposite with me.
Yeah, and I just love plugging out dialogue because I like scenes and the way people talk, and but so if I get the dialogue down first, then I'll plug the action in later, because like I'll kind of remember that that's where it goes. But yeah, Batman and Robin, it was just large chunks that just I like had a basic outline. Originally, I had an outline that went to the halfway point, like the charity ball scene. And I remember telling you, I was like, I don't have anything after that. I know there's a finale at a dam, and I know how the whole thing ends at the very, very end. But, and then eventually, like, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, now that the first half is kind of hashed out, I'm like, I'll think ahead, like, now where do I go from here? And then it's just kind of connecting the dots. It's very chaotic. Like, it's a mess.
It's a mess. It's chaotic, but it works. It works, as we've seen with Batman and Robin here. Alan would really like a Pirates of the Caribbean fanscription.
I've thought about those before, but I just don't know what the story or what the what if would be. I'm like, what if it was better? I mean, we've done a couple of those, but I don't really like titling things like that. So
you're so obsessed with the title.
I mean, that's kind of what draws people in. That's what keeps the show going. Otherwise, we don't have a show. So, I mean,
whenever I propose something, it's like, but what would the what if title be?
I know. Because I'm worried about, like, this is a great gig to have, to be able to do this pretty much for a living here. So, like, I mean, I need to keep it going. And the way that we keep it going is by having people watch it. So I need to have kind of title.
That's why you're the studio, man. You're the studio.
You want to have a roof over your head.
You
suck.
Bean counters. I'm going on strike.
Fantastic. There's a couple of more general questions that are not related to fanscription, but just like superhero stuff. Would you like to take those or just stay focused on fanscription here?
Sure.
Okay. Rabtix wants to know, what do you guys think about the new James Gunn Batman? You think he would be able to write a Robin in the new DCU, or is James Gunn just way too silly for a Batman movie?
I actually have much more faith in him writing a Robin than I do a Batman, so Robin's not the problem.
Is he writing Brave and the Bold?
I don't know if he is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he is either. I know that they're using Damian Wayne, and I don't like Damian Wayne, so that's already kind of an uphill battle for me personally. But yeah, we'll see. There's not enough information out there yet.
Lady Houndoom, thank you so much for that 44-month subscription.
Whoa,
Welcome back. Appreciate that. Dom Klein asks, this is mainly for Rob, since Walter gave his thoughts on Awesome Comics. What were your thoughts on The Flash and Michael Keaton in The Flash? Without too many spoilers.
He hasn't seen it!
Oh, he hasn't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
All right.
No one else did either. It's all right.
Well, it's on digital already.
Is it?
I believe The Flash is on digital.
To, like, August 2nd or something. Okay.
Is it? I don't know.
I think you could do like the advanced purchase, which is like $30 or something.
I am very curious, so I do want to see it. But when it came to seeing it in the theater, I'm just like, or I could see Across the Spider-Verse again, because I already know that's the better movie.
Well, it definitely is. When Keaton shows up, it starts to get better. I didn't like it before that, though.
Batman 89 RP wants to know, Rob, who's your favorite Batman villain?
Oh, that's rough. Probably Catwoman. I do like Freeze. I do like Scarecrow. I really like Clayface, but I feel like he's never quite taken advantage enough. But if you want my honest answer, I think the best Batman villain is either Max Schreck or Roland Daggett, because they're real.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the scariest freaking villain to me, because I'm just like, that's just reality. You know, those people are everywhere.
The Destructive Gamer asks, if you could go back and see one movie from your childhood again, what would you see?
Like for the first time?
Yeah, for the first time.
Oh,
Jurassic Park was really good. I had such a blast seeing that for the first time in 1993.
Raimi's Spider-Man, the first one. I remember everything about that.
Fellowship of the Ring, though, I was already an adult. Flight of the Navigator. I loved that movie when I was a kid. Because the idea of just piloting a flying saucer, co-piloted by Pee Wee Herman, was just amazing.
Cool. We don't really have any other questions.
All right.
So I don't know if you guys just want to wrap it up here then.
Strike!
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't be writing anything right now. Well, we're not in the guild, so hey.
No.
Yeah. This was fun, man. I think that the next time we do this, it'll be on Twitch. And this is supposed to be going up on YouTube as well. So if you are seeing this, make sure you check out our Twitch, guys. I mean, this is where a lot of good stuff happens. Doug is on here a couple times a week. Rob's on here. Heather's on here all the time. She runs the place. Tamara's on here. Malcolm's on here. So, and then we have Tournament Tuesday every other Tuesday. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, you've never seen the Twitch channel, make sure you check that out. And next time we have a FanScription podcast, we'll probably be back on this platform to do it. So.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Good times. Thank you all again so much for joining us for the first ever Twitch FanScription podcast. And we'll see you all in a little bit. Bye. Bye, Walter. Bye,
Bye, everybody.
Rob.
Bye-bye.